Inside Star Citizen is here. It just came out, and so we're going to be watching this. I am so excited about this one. It's about, of course, server meshing. Now, as always with Star Citizen, I think it's really important to set our expectations appropriately, right? So here's what I think is going to happen, because I have not watched it. I was just in the bathroom. It just came out 7 minutes ago. So this is all going to be first take here. But I think we're going to see some devs talking about server meshing, since it's about server meshing. I think that we are not going to be seeing server meshing in action. The footage that we'll see will be footage from 3.18. And that's going to be it. These are my expectations. Just talk. Maybe things that we already know. What is server meshing? Maybe some plans for the future of the year. But anyway, let's get started. Let's go with an open mind.
Meetings. Hands down the most exciting element in all of game development. Everyone that has ever made a game will tell you that it's gathering in a meeting room and talking about stuff that's really their very favorite part of the process.
Yeah, right. I don't know about you guys. I hate meetings. I hate that. At work, it's like except at my current job, meetings are fine. But where I used to work before, I don't know how many times I have like stay awake. maybe they have cool meetings at Cloud Imperial Games, but it looks like he's being sarcastic here.
Yes, the best days in game dev are the ones full of meetings. And the best behind-the-scenes content is always incredibly meeting-focused. Now, imagine a summit, an entire week dedicated to hashing out the plans for the next month, quarter, year.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do earlier, by the way. That's why we don't have any roadmap update for an entire month, because they have to do those meetings first. Hey, generational gaming guys, how are you going, man? So yeah, probably that's going to be a little report here on what happened in January and some of the discussion that they had regarding server meshing, and based also probably on the performance of persistent entity streaming itself.
Yes, exciting stuff, I know. All kidding aside, summits are an essential element of game dev we don't often get to explore. So when we heard that the core technology, network, and engine teams were coming together to discuss how best to move from persistent entity streaming into tackling the immense server meshing, we figured you might just indulge us in trying something a little different this week.
Yes, 70 minutes, by the way. That's a long episode.
And grabbed a few willing participants just minutes after completing their second day of summits to get a candid, unfiltered look inside one of the most important Star Citizen summits of 2023.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, server meshing. Did you listen to what he said, by the way? He did say that server meshing is going to be even bigger than persistent entity streaming. So you think that getting persistent entity streaming to work has been bad so far? I mean, it's working quite well in the PTU right now. We were all up in PTU, but I mean, it's been a tedious and long process. Bad for, our soul and minds, because we've been waiting for it for such a long time. We had to go through all the bugs and through the development process, and that's okay. That's why we're here. But if you thought that persistent entity streaming was hard, wait for server meshing, because here, he just said it's going to be even bigger.
And let me tell you, January's been full of them. So to spare you the full effect of 5 days of meetings,
5 days of meetings
these out over the next few weeks.
Maybe that's why there was no Inside Star Citizen as well.
Content being developed for 3.19 and beyond. So, after just a little ado, we present to you the Server Meshing Strike Team Quarter 1 2023 Development Summit Post-Meeting Review. Name pending.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, new faces. Look at that.
Okay. Meshing Summit Day 2.
Just stick it in your pocket.
All right, that's great. Probably we're looking at some of the tech engineers. There's Benoit.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know what you'd written.
I wrote Benny B.
I can't do this if they're watching me and go away.
We have some French developers as well. Well, let's get started. That's a little bit too much editing here.
What are you guys doing here?
Well, I'm visiting the UK to discuss server meshing with the rest of the team.
We're doing a summit to try and plan for the next deliveries of Pyro and server meshing.
So,
But just Pyro, by the way. So if you were expecting Nix as well, not gonna happen. It's just gonna be Pyro so far.
Summits in general, especially this one, is really where all the teams connect because, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of people have been working from home. So summits become really important because it allows us to reconnect together. So we meet in one location. This time it's in the UK. And we have representative of every team.
It's already at their new office, by the way.
It's the first time that we're meeting as a team. For a lot of us, a lot of people joined the company, a lot of people joined those teams, and they've never met so far.
Yeah, that's because of the pandemic, you know, working from home.
Korea, Montreal, have people from all over, you know. So it's also a strong aspect of the summits.
This is a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's really important, you know, bonding. A lot of you guys must have, I'm sure, have experienced as well, you know, working from home, and you know, it's a little bit cool. You know, you don't need to go to work. You go to work, but you don't need to commute. You don't need to, you know, deal with annoying people on the way to work. You just, you know, wake up a little bit later. Yeah, okay, that's cool for first couple of days, but after a couple of weeks, it feels very lonely. And, you know, just being with people, you may not always appreciate them, but at least, you know, you are exercising your social skills, and that's already something that's important, because in the end you work more effectively, communication is more direct, and work is just being done in a much faster way.
This is the first time ever we've had the strike team all in one place, all at one time. This is our kind of Avengers Assemble moment for server meshing. This is the time we get 3 core teams together to actually work out the final nuances of the architecture to build this system.
It's interesting to see how Paul Randall is presiding the table, by the way.
Teams on the same page. Yeah, we're just building everyone in a room, talk for 1 week, aligning our goals, that we can just go out and create the code without less communication than we would have without it. Many people are already working together for a long time, so it makes communication easier if you know each other and getting forward to agreeing on goals. Based on that, we can more efficiently execute toward a goal, because especially in a global company where time zones are, it's kind of hard. Sometimes I think about software development is like an oil tanker, where it runs good into one direction, but as soon as you want to change direction, it takes a long time, because we need to get everyone has a slightly different idea of how stuff works, and to get
so far my expectations have been met.
On a more detailed level, it's a lot of work and align it.
Once everybody's put their stuff in, we plan it out, we discuss approaches, strategies on how we're going to intertwine our work. And this allows us to build.
So that's their internal roadmap that we're looking at here. I just wish that it was a bit less blurry so we could see.
And not just be building technology for fun.
Alright, okay, actually I was wrong. We are looking at the Pyro system. I thought that we would not see any gameplay footage, but actually we are. And, well, definitely, of course, there's going to be some mining in the Pyro system. I just hope that the materials that we can mine in the Pyro system are not going to be exactly the same all the time as in the Stanton system, so it brings more diversity in terms of minables. And also, I hope that, although Pyro is supposed to have been strip mined already, I hope that some of the leftover materials that you find every now and then on Pyro are also going to be more valuable than those you find in the Stanton system as well, so that it still gives the aspect of, you know, risk and reward that's so important to Star Citizen.
The objective of this
Whoa.
summit is to flesh out
That's a lot of servers
exact
here.
roadmap for server meshing based on all of the work we've been doing for PES. So PES is the state of the simulation that's now persisting. That's great. It's behind us.
It's behind them, so they're already starting to work on server machine. Remember that these meetings were happening in January, so what you are seeing here, what was filmed here, was filmed about a month ago. So that means that by the time they've released this episode of Inside Star Citizen, 10 minutes ago, server meshing is already being worked by all the fine ladies and gentlemen that you are seeing in this video as well.
Now we need to actually server mesh.
The major goal of this summit is to reflect back on what we've done and see how we can do it better for the next milestones on server meshing. What did we forget? What can we do better? How can we better organize ourselves so we keep moving forward and we don't do what we've had to do a lot for the previous delivery, which is think and create as you go. And there will always be a little bit of this in game development. It's normal. You need to have this creativity. You need to keep that. But we also need to get a little bit better at planning and anticipating some of the challenges.
You're
The goal
playing
really
now,
of the
deplorable.
summit is really to flesh out the steps to get there, with the objective to ship a second solar system. That's really the primary objective.
What do you call a jump point for you? Because we are talking a lot of the low technical
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I would, some of a secondary goal is talking about.
Goodbye. Secondary goal would be talking about the low technical groundwork to enable features like jump point.
The law, are we talking about physical law perhaps? Or the law in game?
So,
Oh man,
this is
look
day
at
two,
that.
I think, of the
Those
summit. So
pyro
we've done a
planets.
first
Let's have a look at the
retrospective of all
pyro
of
planets
the
a little
PS.
bit again, because you know, eventually that is the objective. That's what we want to be seeing here. Look at that. We've got the spacescaping that's available with the pyro star in the back and the huge volumetry clouds. It looks so good. It looks so good. What planet is this? With a blue hue like this, I guess that this would be Pyro 1. I'm not so sure. But they do have those volumetry clouds already. Can we see maybe some... I don't know if these are clouds or mountains. Looks fantastic.
So this is day 2, I think, of the summit. So we've
Are we going to
done a
go through
first
all the days in
retrospective
this
of all
ISC?
of the PS work, issues we've encountered, problems we've had, things we want to avoid. And this is officially the first day of actually digging into meshings.
On our second day, we talked about what did I talk about?
Day 2, we have drunk so much coffee.
Day 2 has been super great in that we've aligned a lot of our different roadmaps. Every team gets to have their own
Make me want to
sort of
drink
view
coffee
of
as
the
well.
project. And I think today we really came together as this is the critical path that we need to achieve. Everything else is gravy, but we have the critical path is really clearly identified, which is a big deal in the size of this project.
Server meshing, the plan for persistent entity streaming and server meshing, they were designed to be done simultaneously at the same time. This is going back to late 2020.
Okay, so that was in 2020. They wanted to make server meshing and PES at the same time. Obviously, this has not happened. They must have realized at some point that before they even start making persistent entities, before they even start making server meshing, they need to have persistent entity streaming first. So maybe that's why they didn't have that meeting before, and that they're having it now that persistent entity streaming is working, and they're just working really hard to finalize making it into the live service. Hey, Admiral Griffiths, how's it going, man?
We couldn't do that. It just wasn't practical in the end. So we had to devote all our attention to doing persistent entity streaming.
There we go.
This was in during lockdown, so we did all of this while we're all working from home. We're now in a position with the server meshing stuff, and I've kind of lost my train of thought. I was going to say something really good.
By the way, keep in mind that Chris Roberts actually did mention that by the time they were working at home, they were working twice as slow as when they were working at the office. They're working 2 times faster than during the core time of the pandemic when everybody was at home. So that's why also if you're thinking, oh, development time is taking so much time, that's because also of how not efficient, not effective working from home is. But now that they're all working together, they can have those meetings, direct communication. It's also going to speed things a little bit. And, people were saying, maybe we're not going to see anything. It was inefficient, exactly, Admiral Griffiths. So people were saying we're not going to see the light of server meshing by the end of this year, which is actually Chris Roberts' objective. But who knows? Maybe we'll see at least some footage or some early work in progress by the end of this year, or by at least during the CitizenCon.
I forgot it was.
Yeah, we know what the critical path is, which is that's the most important thing in these technology projects because they get to be very large.
Maybe evocating
so
Griffiths,
sometimes
yeah.
you lose track of what the actual objective is. And our objective is to get a second solar system online as fast as possible. Not just to build server meshing technology, but it's to get the second solar system online. Now we have...
There we go. So they they know we've been waiting for Pyro. I know you guys have been waiting for Pyro as well for quite some time. They know that they want to get it as early as possible. I'm sure that maybe when we're going to have server meshing for the first time, it's not going to be ideal. It's going to be a tier 0, as we can imagine. But the objective is that that tier 0 needs to be including at least a second solar system, which is going to be Paro. Of course, Gruffus in the chat says that he wants Nyx. I don't know anyone who doesn't want Nyx. Of course, we want to go back to Levski, right? And especially we want to see how Levski has evolved since the last time, because probably the Montreal team is going to be working on that as well, expanding Nyx, giving it more hangars, perhaps, more things to do outside as well. Exactly. Hopefully, that's all going to happen, right?
Have a rough roadmap.
Yes, deplorable,
to
reminding us that they did mention that they believe that meshing will be easier than PES, but that's not what Jared said at the start of the video, though.
Strategies after that.
We're tackling a lot of really difficult problems at the moment. Server meshing is one of the toughest problems to solve in video game development, and we've gotten to the point now we're getting system entity streaming to the point where it's shippable. That then kind of opens up lots of opportunities to be able to get this quite impressive system built. So yeah, there's good stuff happening here.
Yeah, that's deplorable Gruffus in the chat. Yeah.
So the first phase is separation.
Oh, these are actually servers in the servers. I thought, earlier when I was looking at that, I thought that these were real life servers. I thought that these were their, I thought these were their own servers. Actually, I see the same picture here, perhaps the same footage from another angle, and it says "Work in progress, Pyro system." Okay, well, their servers certainly do look very realistic for sure.
So the first phase is separation out of the replication layer. That unlocks the Pyro jump gate stuff. That also unlocks the server meshing stuff. We've been talking about the zones and authority, but you're much better off talking to a proper engineer about this kind of stuff. But yeah, we're getting a good handle on this stuff. We're getting a good plan for delivery.
All right, so far it's just the plan that we're talking about. Replication layer. The replication layer is copying the data of one server and then transferring that data to another server, so that when you jump from one server to another, everything that you're experiencing from the first server is happening in the second server without any transition. So that's also very important, right? You must not even notice that you are transferring from one server to another as well. And that is going to be allowing the transfer from one solar system, which is in this case Stanton, all the way to Paro and back and forth. That's what they are planning right now. This does not exist. There's no actual work that's been done as of the time of this video was made back in January. So that's also something that you have to keep in mind as well. How advanced the work is. They could not do it without persistent entity streaming. Now that persistent entity streaming is about to be shipped, that's what they're starting to work on.
We have delivered the PES technology, and now we need to build on what we built there, defining more
Gruffus
substeps
Castor. Oh yeah, Castor has so many nice systems, right? I want Terra, Gruffus.
This is a really complicated system, and we had to learn how to do it. There's been a lot of experimentation. There's been a lot of invention. When we had
probably, so what he is mentioning here, the experimentation, inventions, this probably must have been the R&D. It's probably the R&D that's been done before, that was mentioned in the monthly report that we got to read 2-3 years ago, and there were just a couple of lines like work on server meshing is progressing well. But what work? We were never told what work it was. I think that this is just the answer that we got right here. Experimentation and inventions. They have to create everything. Server meshing is something that does not exist in gaming right now. Star Citizen is probably gonna be the first game ever to have meshing from one server to another with seamless transitions. It just costs so much money to create, so much time. It doesn't make any sense for any game developer to financially to develop these technologies. They're always going to be smoke and mirror tricks to make you go from one place to another. Loading screens. In Star Citizen, we don't want loading screens. So how do you transit from such large areas to other such large areas with any loading screens? Well, you need to have server meshing. And so you have to invent it, because does not exist, that don't know how to deal with it. They have ideas, theories, and that's what was worked on right now, but now they're working on making it.
Our initial plan at the beginning.
I know it's
of,
February, Admiral Griffiths, but this was
2021,
shot
late
in
2020.
January.
There was a lot of stuff in there that we knew we had to build, but didn't quite know how to build it. When we actually came to actually build those interesting systems, we had to we found problems. We found stuff that was never expected. We found limitations of the technology. We found limitations of what the hardware could do. So we very much had to get our engineers to invent our way around the problem. So this is very much a feedback. This is a learning experience to figure out how we need to build server meshing. The key thing that we're doing with this is server meshing is also tied into the Pyro, the delivery of jump gates to get to Pyro. It's not quite the same problem, but it also kind of is. When you actually do a jump to get to Pyro, we have to transfer authority from the Stanton DGS to the Pyro DGS. What we want to do, of course, is have multiple DGS per star system, but we're separating the actual jump gate stuff from the actual server meshing stuff, so that we get to the point so we can actually assure Pyro's delivery, and whilst we worry about the actual server meshing delivery. So we're actually, those are now, from our perspective, two different problems. So very early on, we're going to be tackling what we're calling separation of the replication layer out from the DGS. So that's the thing which replicates all our data. It allows communication. It's a single source of truth in memory for the state of the entire universe at any given time. That's going to get separated out from the DGS that currently holds all the fun simulation stuff that's happening at the moment. That's a first key step, both to delivering Pyro, all the technical backend for the jump gates, and it's also our kind of first big step for server meshing. So that's what we're going to be tackling initially.
Oh, that was. I'm not an engineer. This was a little bit hard to understand. I'm gonna have to watch this again. But it's nice to look at Pyro.
The design that we're putting in now, we've had for a couple of years, and we've been refining it over that time.
Here, once server meshing is in, how often do you think they'll release system? That's a very good question, Gruffers here in the chat. I don't know why you guys cannot see the chat, by the way. I mean, I can see the chat on Twitch, but those of you who will be watching on YouTube will not be able to see it. I don't know why it's hidden, but Amiral Gruff is asking, once server meshing is in, how often do you think they'll release systems? It depends. I think that they could be releasing systems, but not in full. I think that they could be releasing systems in full, but not that much populated, and they'll be populating them later. Or they could be developing systems internally so that in the future, when they want to create a system, they just need to press one button. It's going to pop the planets. The planets are going to go in, and the planets themselves will be populated with outposts that would have already been pre-registered in advance in some kind of database. Perhaps that's what they'll be doing. I think that in the future, in the long term, probably that's what's going to be happening. Because got 100 star systems. It's going to be so much work with the current technology. Right now, I think they're still building the tools to have, those planets and how the planets are working and how to put the different atmosphere. But I think that in the future, they're going to have one internal system in which they'll be able to say, okay, so there's this star system. It has this type of star. Boom, press the button, type it. Or press the click on the button. Then it has how many planets? Okay, so let's tick how many? 5, 6. All right, let's tick 6. So boom, 6 planets will be appearing. What kind of planet is planet number 1? Is it a rocky planet? Is it a gas giant? Does it have an atmosphere? No atmosphere? Is the atmosphere breathable or not? So they'll be able to click this one here. That planet, how many outposts does it have? And what are they doing? What kind of outposts are there? So it'll say, okay, so let's click on the scientific outpost 2, and the commercial outpost 3, and the criminal outpost 5, derelict outpost 25, for example, and then boom, they'll all be populated on there. I think that's what's going to be happening in the future. That is how I see that they are going to be making all those planets in the future. I don't see any other way that they can make 100 star systems without this kind of automation, without the ability to procedurally generate star systems with handmade content that would have been already done in the past, and that's what they're working on right now. That's why they're doing all those derelict outposts that we are seeing almost every week in Inside Star Citizen, and that every patch we are getting some of these new derelict outposts, right? That is already being done. But in the future, what I believe is that it's just going to be an automatic process, and then of course there's going to be some review. They're going to be seeing if the geometry is working properly. They are going to be seeing if the distances are okay, maybe. They are going to be seeing if economically, from an economical point of view, it makes sense to have this type of facility at that particular place. All of that will have to be tested internally, but the process itself of making the star system should no longer be taking a couple of years or several years like it's been for the Saturn system, and then Pyro on the side, and Nyx eventually. I think that it's going to take a while when we are going to have new types of planets. For example, terrestrial planets like Terra and then eventually Earth. Those ones are going to be taking a long time for sure. But you were mentioning Castra in the chat. That one maybe not, right? If the technology is already being created, maybe perhaps some of the features, like if one planet is known to have one iconic type of mountain ridge, or it has this very famous plateau where you have the military base on top. Yeah, okay, that's gonna be handcrafted, but maybe there's gonna be one planet out of 6 or 7 that are gonna be handcrafted, and all the rest is just gonna be some random world, because not every world in the star system needs to be interesting, right? Not every world needs to be populated with a ton of things to do. It's also okay to have empty worlds or worlds that are uninteresting, but maybe some players will be able to go out there, find some wrecks or minables to rock, but you're not going to be doing delivery systems or trading everywhere. Anyway, so that's what I think is going to be happening with the creation of star systems in the future.
There have been bits and pieces of server meshing on there that we needed to get done, but we're now in a position now to really now we've got persistent entity streaming down there as a kind of foundational piece. That then opens up the opportunity to really kind of get this design that we've had, that we've honed, to really knuckle down and actually
See you, Gruffus. I hope you were happy with the answer.
This is a piece of work that's going to last for quite a long time. There'll be ongoing stuff for quite a while.
All right, well, there you go. We got the colors. The color has been announced there. We're going to see server meshing and work on server meshing for quite a while. That means expect them to work on it for several years.
Moving to the goal, even 5-6 years ago when we started with object container streaming, where we started to split up the game into smaller chunks, and then moving from there, having stuff only partially loaded on the clients, having stuff partially loaded on the server, and then decoupling the persistent state. And now the next steps are to decouple it more into more logical units to execute the code, which actually server meshing is. So yeah, it's really a continuation, and over time,
all right, so he joined for object container streaming. I haven't heard this for a while.
Yeah, that's why every year, kind of, most likely we have a summit once per year on this topic for the last N years to refine what we do and what exactly we need to do after we got the step near.
That's the critical path to the first step. But after that is how we get to the actual end game, which is the dynamic mesh. So we all have our views.
All right, so first to get static server meshing, that's the first one that we're going to get. Now, dynamic mesh, that's going to be interesting, because that's probably what's going to allow, I would say, NPCs to be working properly and the game to be working at a much better frame rate, right? Deplorable says, I would imagine server meshing work will take place for the life of the... Probably they're going to have to refine it to make it more and more sustainable. I don't think that it's going to be... Let's say, for example, the game is online. I mean, Star Citizen is working for the next 10 or 15 years or 20, right? I don't think they're going to be working on server meshing for 20 years. But over the next 5 years, probably in order to just fine-tune it eventually when it works, and just make sure that the servers work at an optimal tick rate. And then eventually they're going to have to also make sure that we can have those massive battles, right? Fleet to fleet battle. Maybe one area where a battle is happening is going to be one server, or maybe one ship is going to be one server, and one server will be fighting against another server, and that's how server meshing is going to be also playing a role here in making this happen. Because we all know that some of those ships that they're working on, especially the capital ships, these are especially very resource hungry. But not just that, they're also personnel hungry as well. A javelin, for example, you're going to require 20, 30 players to man a javelin effectively. It's not just flying the ship, it's not just manning the turrets as well, but it's also all the systems inside, powering the ship, and all the engineers, the repair crew, some of the troopers inside in case the ship gets boarded. So if there is like a fleet battle with several of them, fighting several of them, because some of these orgs out there are pretty massive. We have some orgs with thousands of people. So we can imagine that there's going to be, wars, things are going to happen between the orgs who do have those big fleets. And that's not even counting the fighters as well. So they're going to have to make that happen and make this work via server meshing as well. You're right, General Deplorable, you're right.
On this, but now it's really, we're getting into the grave view. Like, how is this going to work? Here's cases we have to deal with, like if a player dies into a jump tunnel, right? What happens to the missions, right? What happens to the persistent state of these tunnels? Do they exist? Do they not exist? Do they respawn? So we talk about not necessarily the gameplay aspect of it, like I'm giving you guys an example now, but really the technology aspect of it. So do these zones keep existing? How do we reuse them? Do we want to reuse them? What's the effect on PES, right? For these zone transition subsystems. So
that's a very good point. What if something, everything's gonna have to persist? What if someone crashes? When all that data goes to another server, are the regs going to be there as well? They should be, but how?
And the highlight of it has been really about identifying that and then how we make it dynamic.
Pyro. Well, was that wait? What did we saw above Pyro here? Is that the Hull C? Let's have a look again. Yeah! Did you see that little teaser there? Have a look again. Look at this. There's a ship here, and you can see that something is expanding. I bet that this is the Hull C. We got some, I bet these are probably some, I don't think that this is going to be Rune Station. It's supposed to be much bigger than that, but we know that Pyro is going to have some abandoned stations, maybe some stations that players will be able to take over. So that perhaps could be what we were looking at here.
The best thing which came out of today is, basically the same which comes out of summits. It's to get alignment, that everyone gets the same idea into their mind in a detailed level. That's Jennifer Lam. There's not.
After day 2, I think the biggest question is still how we're gonna operationalize the dynamic mesh. And so we still have these big statements like, oh, we're gonna request additional DGSs and then assign them. Now we're gonna have to flesh out, how do we request them? How do we know they're ready? How do we assign them? How does that actually work?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point here, because we're all talking about the fact that they're serving one server meshing one server with another to make Pyro happen, but they've got to make sure that when they do that, it's also going to allow for the creation of those dynamic meshing of servers that are going to be happening later in the future. They don't want, the thing that they want to avoid is to have a version of server meshing that's a tier 0 or a tier 1 that allows us to go to Pyro, but then that work prevents them from dynamically meshing the servers that's later going to allow us to have those fleet battles that we want to have eventually. So that's a very good point.
Is going to be the key to the next steps.
That will then be built over the coming months. And of course, it's not just us as well as the strike team. We have, 50 or so game teams that are also going to have to take this code and then have to adapt all their functionality that they have across Star Citizen to use all this cool technology. So, yeah, this is the start of server meshing in its current form. In our case, it's cramming a lot of developers into a room, closing the doors, getting to drink coffee and talking a lot. It's very much a list of stuff that we've got to determine. We basically have a list of stuff that we need to nail down. Open questions, miscommunications between teams. We need to get these 3 key teams all aligned, all pointing in the same direction, so they all fully understand what it is they're building. We resolve the technical niggles that we have between these teams, so they really understand what it is they're making. We correct problems before they happen, so there's misunderstandings between the interfaces between the teams that can be quite expensive to fix. Having a summit like this...
Quite expensive, I mean... I like the British euphemisms. Sometimes it takes years to fix one of the problems. Sometimes you have to scrap a piece of technology altogether because there's a problem that prevents from moving forward, as we saw with iCache in the past, which was the ancestor of persistent entity streaming. iCache was supposed to be doing the work of PES, just didn't work the way they wanted to do. They used to work on it for quite some time, and what happened to iCache was just scrap, thrown off the bin, and they had to work again. That's expensive, we're talking about months, if not years of game development that you have to, that goes to waste and start again. So they want to make sure that they are going to avoid doing that for server meshing too.
This allows us to fix these problems in advance and fix them much more cheaply. So yeah, we need to just, this is what gives us the solid plan that we're going to be working to for the next year. So touch wood, we're in a position now to finally push on and get the very first version, which is static server meshing, in place. We're bound to find other problems on this journey, but we can invent our way. We know we can invent our way around these problems. So yeah, we may occasionally get slowed down, but we don't get. We're still determined to deliver this.
That's awesome. By the way, did you notice that it says Inside Star Citizen Merging Together Part 1? So we're going to have another one of those episodes. Is it going to be next week, or is it going to be further down the line? I don't know. But this is not the last that we're seeing here of the server meshing team.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that PES is not just the technical harbinger we all knew it would be. It was also the critical experience necessary to review, amend, and evolve existing plans for server meshing with the lessons learned along the way. That it is a variety of technologies, including the long-awaited jump points that will enable the addition of Pyro and star systems beyond. And that people, really, boy, do they really love to just sit down for an interview just 5 minutes after sitting in intense all-day meetings.
Must have been really hard for Jared to find some volunteers.
I tell you, I owe some people some dinners. Now, we'll be back with more traditional ISC features and return visits to the Meshing Strike Team Summit in the coming weeks. And don't forget to keep your eyes on the robertspaceindustries.com website and socials for information on the pending release of Alpha 318. It's got salvage, cargo,
it's got a lot of stuff, but
and
you guys think it's going to be happening this week? I don't think so. Probably next week.
The things you learn on
At least it's an open PDU now.
For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
All right, that's it. Wow, quite a lot to talk about in this episode indeed. I guess that will be, keeping up with the news, and we'll be watching part 2 whenever it comes online, right? Anyway, let's keep the live stream going, shall we?